Welcome back to Piper House, where we renovate our 1889 vacant home in a small town in Nova Scotia. Boy, do I feel silly from last week's video. So many of you commented on all of these scraps and threads that I found and said, Veronica, it's probably a mouse nest. And of course, you are so right. I just was so swept up in finding the patterns and all these things hidden in the walls. Anyway, I have since found several of these nests hidden in the walls. So you're very right. To everybody that was probably like, oh my God, gross, that's a mouse nest. You're right. Not gonna lie, you guys, we feel pretty worn out these days. This is Matt's gig, is busking for tourists in between piping gigs. He wears the full dress when he's playing on the waterfront for the tourists, and he'll stand there and play for hours and hours and hours, usually early in the morning as the cruise ships are arriving. And he stands for hours and plays, which is very physically taxing, to say the least, to stand in a big getup like that, playing the bagpipes for hours. In the meantime, I'm in the studio making clothes for people, trying to get things together, pressed, packaged, and sent to the courier so I can ship them out to the people. And then I pack up and change clothes and go down to the waterfront and pick Matt up, and we drive the hour and a half from Halifax to our house and we start to renovate. It's exhausting. This particular day, we were up late the night before at a celebration of life. We did not feel great. We drove to the house anyway, but just could not get up the gumption. So instead, we drove to Caribou Island, which we'd never been to before. And oh my God, is it ever beautiful. The water was like bath water. That Northumberland Strait water is just amazing. And it was such a needed break for Matt and I to just pause for a second, listen to the waves, have just a few hours with just ourselves. It was wonderful. A different day, we tried again. I was definitely in better spirits that day and ready to tackle more of the downstairs. I had to clear out some of the boxes and bins that we had already brought. Here I am taking off the old doorbell. It has sort of like a ceramic tile on it, which was kind of cool. I know what you're thinking. You're probably thinking, boy, oh boy, I really wish they did something other than tear down plaster and laugh to watch. And believe me when I say, oh, we know, we feel the same way. The next clip is about 30 seconds of sped up video with audio, and we howled laughing when we were watching this. He always tells me that I run everywhere. I don't run, I just naturally am a very fast walker, but compared to him, this audio is hilarious. So here you go. That's enough of that. We had to clear this room. This was kind of a catch-all room for us and the previous owners, and we needed to take the walls down. I found a silver chain in the rubble there. We needed to take the walls down in here, so we had to finally clear out the whole space. Since this house renovation started, we had yet to work in the same room together, so this was kind of fun. This was a bit of a struggle because there's gyprock in this room, one of the only rooms that had it, on top of plaster. So that made it twice as fun to remove. We realized that we had to start really focusing on the first floor here, so that we can have at least one floor that we can potentially move into. That's our thought anyway. Over on the other side of the room, I decided to tackle the windows. I uncovered this piece of wallpaper that had people's heights or something written on it, which was kind of neat. I really wanted to be careful going around the windows because we found so many things hidden around the windows in the living room. So I just wanted to be sure that we could, not lose any of the bits and pieces that were coming out of there. But this was a really annoying section of the room to do. There were so many beams and so many studs because that little bump out there with the windows is an extension on the original house. So there's like the outside beam and then isn't that cute? The outside beam and then all these studs in between, which makes it just harder to get your crowbar in and just tear lath off. I was doing the best I could here, but boy, oh boy, it took a lot longer than just a regular old wall. Back on the other side of the room, Matt decided to take a different approach and go from the opposite side of the wall to hammer out the plaster. It was very effective, but it scared the absolute daylights out of me because I was in the same room and I wasn't expecting it. But he did manage to clear out this one wall pretty quickly, so it was very effective. Here he is taking the trim off, and we discovered that on the back of the trim it says M. McKay, like MCK, and this was Murdoch Mackenzie's house, so that was kind of interesting too. The trim, I tell you, we have to save all the trim. I don't know if any of you have ever tried to buy old trim. It's very difficult, and the trim today, a lot of it isn't even wood. We want to save all this trim, but getting it off of these windows and doors, very difficult. I found more paper. I was very excited. It turns out that it's old comic strips from, I'm guessing, probably about 1917. The paper was pretty degraded, but still a pretty interesting find. As I was saying earlier about being sick of watching us tear down plaster and lath, believe me when I say we're sick of doing it. We can't wait to move on to a different project. Unfortunately, nothing else can happen until all of the plaster and lath is down. So we have to do what we have to do. Matt is taping together the pieces that came off of that door, the trim pieces, and then taking a Sharpie and writing on the back which door or window they came from. We're hoping that when we go to reassemble all of these many bits of trim onto the drywall, that we will have every piece accounted for. Some might go amiss, but we feel confident that we can figure it out and put it all back where it came from. Back on the other side of the room, I am trying to remove the trim from the windows. As I said, it is pretty monotonous work, but there we go. Here is where all of that bug dust, not dust from the bugs, but dust from them eating the wood. Here's Matt just really trying to get that one wall fully cleared before we finally packed up and went home for the day. Another day, another worn out Veronica eating some gluten-free crackers and Red Bull for lunch. It's, hour and a half is not a crazy drive, but it just back and forth several times a week. It gets a little tiring, so I did not feel a lot of energy this day, but onward we go. Taking off more of this drywall and this just wall of chipboard underneath. So we'll be removing that because there's some pretty gnarly stains on the bottom of that as well, from that weird little bathroom. Almost took my head off here, but all sorted. It is kind of satisfying when you can get a big chunk off like that, but it can be a little scary when you're on a ladder. I decided to switch tack and go back out to the hallway from the previous strip and start on a new wall just to try and get some work done. This was a very hectic day. I had several tradespeople coming, several different plumbers, several different electricians, just trying to get quotes for all of that work. There's some pencil marks on the wall there that I thought was cool. There's just so much work that needs to be done in this house. We need a heat source, we need updated electrical, we need updated plumbing. So in between, I was doing bits and pieces of taking down some plaster, some gyprock, all the things. In this section, there was sort of this weird little part of a wall from before the extension was put on, and I found this wallpaper tucked in there. It is the coolest, most beautiful wallpaper I've found in this house so far, and I found a lot of wallpaper. This is the kind of wallpaper that would be super cool today, but I'm going to guess that it's probably turn of the century. Still very, very cool. I found several pieces of it, and I'm definitely keeping those. I really wanted to get more done because I'd spent so much time that day chatting with the different tradespeople. Each person that came was, about an hour or so. So I was just trying to get some more done, more chunks of this wall off. But boy, oh boy, I was not in the mood. I was worn out. Look at me here. Great. Time to go home and drive an hour and a half back to Halifax. But that's what we signed up for, and that's totally fine. The end goal will definitely be worth it. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you next time right here at Piper House.